Good afternoon, and welcome to the Grinnell Prize Award Ceremony and Symposium. Every year for the past 5 years, we've presented this prize to leaders from around the world who are doing the most innovative work in social entrepreneurship and social justice. When the college created the program in 2010, the goal was to honor people who are modeling the Grinnellian ideal of learning in the service of social commitment. As the program has matured and thrived, we've come to see it as also a powerful way to connect our students and community with exceptional social innovators. The winners teach classes and workshops, mentor students, and increasingly host internships that benefit both the organizations and our causes. It's a distinctive program and a way to extend Grinnell's distinguished history of educating individuals who are prepared in life and work to use their knowledge and their abilities to serve the common good. This chapel itself bears the signs of that history. One of the plaques in the back of the room honors Grinnell students who died fighting for the Union in the Civil War. Another honors the 11 abolitionist ministers who founded the college in 1846. Here at Grinnell, social commitment isn't just an idea. It's not even just a core value. It's the essence that courses through the body of our community. As proud as we are of providing a world-class education, this is not a place where we teach unbridled self-interest or sterile scholarship. We believe learning derives its value when married to a sense of social obligation. Some have called this the greater, more complex truth of being a caring, wise, and engaging human. The Grinnell Prize has become a natural extension of this idea and a way to extend it still further. With this in mind, it's really a great pleasure to introduce to you the winners of the 2015 Grinnell Prize. These two remarkable young innovators are just starting to make their mark. They were selected from among nominations received from every corner of the globe, and they have led two remarkable organizations that have taken creative approaches to serious global challenges with impressive results. First, Maria Vertkin is the creator and executive director of Found in Translation. Maria started Found in Translation in 2011 in Boston to support and train homeless and low-income multilingual women to start careers as professional medical translators. Found in Translation addresses two challenges: economic disadvantages and racial, ethnic, and linguistic disparities in healthcare. Maria recognized that low-income multilingual women have language skills that could be put to great use. Each year, 20 to 30 women graduate with a certificate in medical interpretation through Found in Translation, and the program is offered free. But the program also supports the students in the form of on-site childcare, mentoring, and career placement services. As interpreters, graduates accomplish great things. They help reduce racial, ethnic, and linguistic disparities in the delivery of healthcare. They help save lives, and they help cut healthcare costs by preventing medical errors and improving efficiency. Anyone who has worked in an urban hospital in the recent years can attest to the challenges of having a translator translate every conceivable language that is facing healthcare systems now. All too often, I remembered having little kids having to translate for their parents in ways that really didn't serve them well or their parents. This is a huge void that Maria's organization is filling. For her innovative efforts to empower low-income women with language skills and simultaneously reduce disparities in healthcare, I'm proud to award Maria Vertkin the 2015 Grinnell Prize.
Hello, everyone. I'm very, very excited to be here. A little bit nervous, but mostly excited, proud, and very honored to receive this award and to be among among you guys and the Grinnell College community. One of the things that makes this so special is that when the idea for Found in Translation came to me and first began to form, I was in my last year of my bachelor program in social work and also working as a social worker. And I remember in my work thinking, I'm working with such diverse populations, with foster care youth, and with families, and domestic violence, and with youth homelessness. So very, very different types of people with different life stories. And yet, one thing was in common in all the populations that I was trying to help, and that was that immigrants were overrepresented, minorities were overrepresented, women were overrepresented, and especially women with young children. And we all sort of intellectually understand that poverty is systemic, and certain people are affected by poverty and homelessness more than others. And yet, I had never been in a situation where I saw so much of that reflected in the people of the faces that I was helping and getting to know and respecting so much. And I remember working with, almost everyone that I worked with at the time was working several jobs and trying to go to school and trying to sort of do so many things. But even if you work 3 full-time jobs at minimum wage, you'll never get out of poverty. And yet, thinking as an entrepreneur, I also noticed there was an asset in the low-income communities that was going unrecognized: language skills. When someone is bilingual, if you dress up that skill just right, you can use it to get a job that pays enough to permanently get people out of poverty. And so I began to research. I did some Googling to see what can people do with bilingual skills, what kinds of jobs out there pay well, and I immediately found medical interpreting. I hadn't heard of that profession before, but it just was a no-brainer. The trainings were pretty short. All the programs I'd researched in the area were between 40 and 60 hours long, and yet, when you graduate, you would earn wages that are equivalent to wages you would earn if you were to get a master's degree. So around $20, $30, sometimes $40 an hour entry level, which is not bad. The cost was much, much lower than getting a college degree, only about $1,000 for the cheaper community-based courses. It was not a male-dominated field. The profession was growing very, very rapidly, and at this point, it's actually the 4th fastest growing profession in the US. And I thought, this is great. I've solved the problem. I'm a genius. And I remember making a list of all the people I was working with who had language skills, and making a list of all the programs that taught interpreting, where they were, and who would go to which one, and then quickly realized, not so fast, Maria, that's not how it works. Yes, it's not a lot of money, especially compared to a college degree, but if you don't have $1,000, you just don't have $1,000. And if you don't have that money in the bank, it's really, really hard to find that money. And let's say somebody could get the money if they borrowed it, if they saved it up, they could cover tuition. But where would they get the money for books and for supplies? And if they could figure out all the money, but they had young children, and if you're a single mom with young children, you have no one to watch your kids, you can't even dream about having enough money to pay a babysitter, you can't take the course. If you figure out the money and the children, but you need a car to get to the training, and you don't have a car, you can't take the course. If you find the money and you find the childcare and you find the car, but you don't have gas money, or you get a flat tire, you can't take the course. And so this pile of barriers was in the way of the women that I was trying to help, that really, in the end of the day, would have nothing to do with how good of an interpreter they would make. Because when you get hired as an interpreter, ultimately, nobody cares whether you have children or you have money in the bank. They care about how good of an interpreter you are, how smart you are, how driven you are, how well trained you are. They care that you have the credentials to qualify you for it. But how would they get to that point if all of that was in the way? So this is where I decided to sort of, take all the pieces that were already there in the community where I was working. We had interpreter trainings. We had great candidates. There was money in the community floating around, just the people that I wanted to help didn't have that money. And make a program that provided a high-quality medical interpreter training that was free, completely free. 0 for tuition, 0 for supplies, everything included, with on-site childcare so that moms could attend and not be worried about their children. With transportation assistance to cover the next biggest barrier for women. and then put in other supports to make it, to level out the playing field so that women who don't have a lot of economic resources would have an equal chance of succeeding as women who have money and mentors and all these things that we kind of take for granted. Why I wanted to do this was kind of in the big sense was to address two social problems. First is, as I described, immigrants and women and immigrant women face a lot of hardships that the rest of us don't. And it is really, really hard for them to advance professionally and economically. But second, there's a huge crisis with there not being enough medical interpreters for all the patients who need them. Medical interpreting is a legally protected civil right, and any patient who needs to access medical care is entitled to a professional trained medical interpreter so that they could get health care in the language that they speak best in a culturally appropriate manner. But sometimes there just aren't enough interpreters, especially when you're looking at languages that are less common. And that is a very costly problem, not just from a financial perspective with the inefficiencies, delays in healthcare, medical errors, but also in terms of patient health. And a lack of an interpreter has, on numerous occasions, ended up with a patient being sick or even dying. And that's not a cost that we can afford to pay as a society. And I think it's not surprising that we're the only organization that has thought to look for a solution to that problem in low-income communities, because immigrants get discounted all the time. It's very easy to discount the strength of immigrants because of the way we've been conditioned to look at them. Even with my own father, I'm very close to my dad, and he's a very smart guy. He's an engineer and a chess master. But sometimes when he says something in English, I catch myself thinking he's not very bright. And I quickly snap back and remember, no, I know this person, he's very smart. But even though I know him so well, and even though I work with immigrants on a daily basis, I still have internalized, ingrained beliefs that I'm not even aware of, but I do catch them floating to the surface once in a while. And so it's not surprising that the women in our program come in often with low self-esteem and discounting their own strengths and competencies. And I can tell you from my own experience as an immigrant, from watching my own parents struggle, that immigration takes a lot out of people. It reduces people. I would describe it as having the reset button pushed on your life, where you lose familiar faces, you lose places, you lose habits, you lose everything that was familiar to you, but probably one of the biggest losses is the loss of competence. That feeling of mastery, feeling that you are a full adult and you're a contributing, participating member of society. Somebody who comes to the United States who had a degree suddenly finds that this degree means nothing. And maybe in your home country you could perform surgery, but here you're reduced to only being able to wash dishes or do other unskilled labor. And this is something that my family faced. Both my parents have degrees that don't mean anything here. And since we immigrated first to Israel, then to here, my parents have only been able to work in low-wage, unskilled labor. And all this training that they had, this credentials they have gone to waste, essentially. And it's a big loss to society, but also to the people who experience this. Eventually they internalize and see themselves as not capable. You might have an expertise, a very high-level expertise in something, but if you don't have the language skill to express it, to talk about it, people will perceive you as not very knowledgeable. And your communication is reduced to a child's level where, if you have a great sense of humor, but you don't have the linguistic nuance to express it, you just can't communicate on the same level, and it's isolating, and it brings down your self-esteem. And we have women who come into the program who say, yes, I know that it's an asset being bilingual, but does Somali count? And even though on an intellectual level, they know it's a skill, it is really hard for them to access it. So I'm very proud of having an organization where we not only teach a marketable skill and help women get well-paying work that changes their lives for themselves and their children, but also an organization where women can reclaim a sense of mastery, where they can reclaim a connection to their roots and pride in their heritage, and where they can leave saying, not only I have a better job and I have a better future, but to say I'm more connected to my heritage and I'm more proud of it. And one of the biggest gifts we feel we're able to give to these women by having them as part of a multilingual community that values diversity in a very, very, very major way is that they're able to say, I am a better Haitian woman, I am a better Chinese woman, and to take something that for a long time was the most stigmatized thing about them, the most stigmatized aspects of their lives, their cultural heritage, and turn it into their biggest asset in the workforce is tremendously transformational for them. And for us, one of our biggest challenges as an organization is the immense pressure we feel to expand in response to the urgent need of other communities. We get contacted constantly from communities in other states, even in other countries, saying, we need this here. Or I'm a single mom, I'm raising up 2 young kids in a motel room alone. I'm bilingual, this is my chance. Do you offer this in Colorado? And we don't at the moment, and we really, really want to. And for us, a young organization with not a lot of recognition across the US, receiving the Grinnell Prize will be transformational. The money itself is very substantial for an organization our size, and it'll enable us to grow. And the recognition will help us to get other communities to get on board with this, not just from the perspective of the people who would benefit, but also funders, hospitals, institutions, seeing that this is a legitimate thing. So this vote of confidence from Grinnell College is huge, huge, huge for us. And on a more personal level, this award is making the dreams of women and their families into realities. And this is exactly the kind of thing that many bilingual women need in different communities. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I wish my family had when we immigrated. So thank you all so much, and thank you, Grinnell College.
Now let us recognize our next winner. Deborah Ahenkorah is the co-founder and executive director of Golden Baobab. Based in Ghana, Golden Baobab is a literary arts organization that helps African children see themselves in books. Deborah was 11 years old when she became aware that the Nancy Drew books that she loved were not the most relevant books to her life in Ghana. When she got to college, she started an organization that shipped American books to libraries across Africa. But she wanted to do more. She wanted African children to see their own faces and their own worlds depicted in books. While still in college, Deborah co-founded Golden Baobab to inspire African writers and illustrators to create books for African children. One way Golden Baobab accomplishes this is by offering annual prizes for African writers and illustrators. The winners receive a prestigious award as well as a cash prize. Golden Baobab also offers outreach programs and workshops to help writers and illustrators improve their craft. And in conjunction with their sister company, they offer literary agent services and publications. This whole issue was brought home to me recently when our family has friends who live in Vienna, and their kids are of African descent. And the mother noted that she could not get any books in Vienna that had kids of color in them. And when she went on Amazon to order, they wouldn't ship the books to Vienna. So she couldn't get, so I'm her source now. So I buy regularly and ship over to Vienna so that her kids can see themselves in books that they never, ever see in Vienna. This is a huge problem, and not just for Africa. Deborah is finding creative ways to help writers and artists and children in Africa connect through books. and is expanding into becoming a publisher. Today, we honor Deborah Ahenkorah, co-founder of Golden Baobab, with the 2015 Grinnell Prize for inspiring children's writers and illustrators across Africa and helping them create and share wonderful books specifically for African children.
Thank you, guys. This is really exciting. I'm very grateful to the Grinnell College community. This prize is huge, 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 and the honor is incredible, and the impact it will make to the work that we do, I cannot begin to explain. So thank you so much, Grinnell College. In the work that we do across the African continent, one of the biggest goals is to deliver happiness to children, to give children stories in which they can see themselves, in stories which can create happy places in their head. But in the development world, looking for funding, we're asking for funding as against programs that are supporting things like malaria and things like food. So finding people who will believe in the importance of happiness for children and stories that inspire children's imaginations isn't always easy. So to be here in a community like this that understands the impact of the work that we're doing and the importance of it is almost like finding a soulmate or a kindred spirit. And that's always very special. So again, thank you very much, Grinnell. So I work with stories, and I'm a bit of a storyteller. So I'm going to tell a few stories to try and bring home here to Grinnell what it is that millions of African children go through without books. So you can maybe relax and close your eyes and imagine with me a little boy here in Grinnell. And it's his first day of school, so obviously he's excited, or maybe not. And his mom packs him up, packs up his bags, and they get to school. And he's greeted by his teacher and giving a seat, and his teacher puts a book in front of him, and the book is in Ukrainian. And the story is about Ukrainian folklore with Ukrainian food, Ukrainian music, Ukrainian things that this little boy in Grinnell has no idea about, has no way to imagine, no way to understand. He's learning a new language, and he's learning it in a context that he cannot begin to imagine. In many ways, that is the situation for many African children. You can imagine a little girl in rural Ghana, in a place where there's no electricity, so she's never seen a refrigerator before, so has no concept of what ice is. And she's learning to read English, and the first book she has is Snow White. She doesn't understand what snow is, so she'll ask her teacher, "What is this?" Her teacher herself does not understand. So half the lesson is spent trying to explain this foreign context, whereas this is a problem that really shouldn't exist. There's been a book famine across the African continent for several years, and how this problem has been solved traditionally is to collect books from various places and then ship them to Africa. While this is so important, and this is work that I myself have been involved in for a very long time, it's absolutely critical that there's balance and representation. It's not okay that children in some parts of the world wake up, pick up books, and see themselves and their stories and their cultures and their language and their slang and their food represented in it, and children in another part of the world get up, pick up books, and only see other people in it. I grew up in Accra, Ghana, and I absolutely loved to read. I was a little problematic because we'd go to the bookstore, my mom would buy a book, and by the time I got home, I'd be done with it and asking for more. So you can imagine her joy when one day in town she came across a library. There weren't many then. This library meant the world to me. It was a small shipping container. It had been painted blue. It had this small little garden in front and a few bookshelves of books. But to me, it was heaven, because there I could find all of these books, and on the weekend I'd borrow like 5-10 books, and I'd be, I'd hide. We had a table on our veranda, and I'd hide on it. I'd hide under the table, and I'd cover the table with a piece of cloth. So I had my own little reading tent, and nobody could find me. And from under that tent, I would be slaying dragons in Persia, and solving mysteries here in Connecticut, and doing all of these really amazing things from my own head. And it didn't matter all the things that were going on around me. So I had a very beautiful childhood with books, and books changed my life. And I want to give that same experience to other children. When I graduated high school, I was very lucky to get a scholarship to come to the United States. I went to Grinnell College over on the East Coast, and while I was there, my first year, I came across an organization that was shipping books to Ghana to build a library, and I thought, oh my gosh, perfect, I have to get involved. I completely understand this problem. I completely understand the impact. I must get involved. So I connected with the lady running that program and said, how can I help you? She said she needed books, and I thought, okay, perfect, I'm going to find you some books. I thought, okay, I'm in my first year of college. I don't know anybody in this country. How do I find the books I promised to this lady? And I thought, okay, just problem solve, right? So you need books. Where do you find books? Okay, you find books in libraries. Okay, so I'm going to call up all of the libraries in the community and ask if they can donate books. None of them had books to donate. So just as I was about to give up, a mentor mentioned to me that, hey, maybe you should just, have a book drive on campus, and faculty and staff may be able to give books. And I thought, oh, that's not such a bad idea. So we organized a book drive, and people donated, and that was really the genesis of this work. I collected those books, supported that one first library, and people continued to donate, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, well, if you're going to continue to donate and more people need books, I'm going to continue to do that. Eventually, that became a student organization on campus, and as we were shipping the books one day, I came across one with pictures of a little African girl, and it hit me that of the thousands of books we had shipped, it was the first one that told a story of the people the books were going to. So that was a real wake-up moment for me, and I began to think, is there a way to balance this out? Of course, it's important for children in Africa to read about others in the world, but it's absolutely critical that they be able to see themselves as well in the books that they read. I began to think about it, and I wondered, what can I do? I'm a sophomore in college. How can I solve this thing? Should I even bother to solve this? But I was plagued with a lot of, in some ways, guilt, because it's like, I want to do this the right way, and I wonder if there's really another way. Again, pure problem solving, I thought, okay, we need stories. It's not rocket science to create stories. How do you create stories? Oh, you get people to write. Okay, so I'm going to start a competition, and I'm going to tell people to write stories, and then I'm going to find connections to publishers for them. And that's how Golden Baobab was born. One summer, I went back home, launched this Pan-African Literature Prize, inspiring writers to create stories. The first year was incredibly successful. A number of the stories were picked up for publication, and I thought, oh, I may have chanced onto something, and I've continued that work to this date. This year, we've launched a publishing company that I'm incredibly excited about, to turn the stories that we are discovering through our literature prizes into books and other multimedia for children. Through Golden Baobab, we run a number of programs. Our flagship program is our literature prizes. So this is a $20,000 prize for African writers and illustrators. We ask them to create stories that haven't yet been published, and when they send those stories to us, the winners get to win the cash prize, and then we celebrate them and give them a lot of press. We also connect them to opportunities. We have workshops and fellowships that really allow them to be able to hone their craft and take their work to the next level. I think one of the things that really excites me about our work is the fact that if we're scouring an entire continent for the very best talent, and we're taking these stories and we're producing them for children, those stories are stories that are going to last. Those stories are stories that will be read for generations to come. I look forward to a time when you can walk into any bookstore anywhere in the world and find incredible African stories that just create happy places for children in children's minds. I couldn't have done any of this alone. The success that we've seen to date really is a result of the hard work of so many people. In the very early days of this, when I had the idea, I introduced it to my co-founder, Ramashagaya, who was an alumni of my school, and I said, I'm going to apply for a grant to do this, but they're not just going to give me the money. I have to tell them that I'm working somewhere. Can I say I'm working with you? And she said yes. And so I worked with her, and her guidance and mentorship probably allowed me to escape 3 years of mistakes. Like, I just knew nothing, but she coached me, and we're here today, so I'm very grateful to her. I'm also grateful to the countless of volunteers who believed in this when it was barely a seed of an idea and dedicated their time, their efforts. Our web designer did our website for free, our logo designer did it for free, our judges judge for free, our evaluators evaluate. This was just countless of people all over the world have given their time to bring this work to where we are today. I'm also extremely grateful for the team that I work with, who don't often get to stand on such a stage and, again, believe in this work with me and dedicate all of their time to making it possible. I'm grateful for my family, who thought I was a little crazy in the beginning. My dad would often ask me, you say you're working on this baobab thing. What is it? Is it a tree? Are you a farmer? No, I'm not a farmer. It's a literature prize. Oh, you mean it's a tree? Like, no, it's not a tree. So very often in the beginning, I seemed a little cuckoo, but I think now, having seen the importance of what we do, having seen the impact, I think they believe along with me that this is something that truly can make a difference. Over the years, I think one of the stories that has really inspired me and continues to make me believe in what we're doing is the story of one of the very first books that was published. It was written by a librarian in a village library, and you have, for the competition, you have to type it up and then submit it by email, but she doesn't have computer literacy skills. So she wrote down the story on paper, and she gave it to someone who submitted it, and she was shortlisted for the prize. When she found out that she had been shortlisted for the prize, she just broke down crying, because for many years she's been reading other people's stories to children, and she never thought her story, would be important enough to be recognized. So it really is the dreams of people like this that we are bringing to life. It is the stories of people who love children dearly and who want to join us in creating happy places for them in their minds that we're bringing to life. And Grinnell is joining us in that journey and making that possible in very important ways. And we are very, very grateful, immensely grateful. So thank you so much, Grinnell College.